Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of A Day in the Future. Today we're going to discuss together with Dan Toma about corporate innovation. He's a co-author of two best-selling books in corporate innovation, The Corporate Startup and Innovation Accounting. And together with him, we're going to dive into how corporate innovation has come to be, what was the need for it in the first place, and what are the current challenges for bigger companies when it comes to innovation. We're also going to be discussing a bit about how a day in the future looks like in this world and how innovation is going to move from an optional function, if you want to call it that way, to an essential one in a business that is able to thrive in the future as technology comes to become part of our daily lives. Hello, Dan. Welcome today at Day in the Future. Thank you for joining us and accepting the invitation and for the time that we're going to have together with you today. So today we're going to talk about corporate innovation. So I think the best way to start is by asking what is exactly corporate innovation and how is it different from innovation itself, if it's different in any way.
Right. First of all, thank you very much for having me on the show. Big honor being here. What is corporate innovation? I think it's a very good question to start a conversation on and to frame the conversation. I don't think it actually differs from, let's say, startup innovation, if you want. I think it's probably a bit more complex than startup innovation because unlike the startups, you have other things to worry about, probably more things to worry about. For example, brand equity, right? If I'm a big bank or if I'm a big pharma company, I can't launch anything that I want whenever I want it. I also need to be mindful of my brand and the damage or the good things I'm doing to my brand. That's just one. There's many other things, like you need to be following a strategy, or you need to consider a probably more complex stakeholder environment versus what you would typically have in your startup. But yeah, I don't think they differ that much. They're probably cousins, if you want. That would be my answer.
Understood. So you mentioned strategy, that you need to follow a strategy when you're innovating in the corporate world, and it's usually set out by the big corporate vision and what the company does at a bigger level. But how rigid can innovation get due to this strategy? Like, does it stifle innovation, or are there any risks in innovation being stifled by strategy?
Well, innovation can be stifled by strategy. Definitely, the strategy is too rigid. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but one of the things to consider is the fact that if you are doing innovation in the absence of strategy, it's probably more detrimental. If I would be in front of one of our clients and they would ask me, should I do innovation without the strategy or should I do innovation with a very, very rigid strategy? I would always pick a very, very extremely rigid strategy over no strategy at all. Why? Because it's like in the startup world. When you set up a venture fund, CVC, that particular venture fund needs to have a very clear investment thesis. What are the startups they're looking for? How mature they are? In which country? What certain technology? What's certain secret sauce or value propositions the startups need to have in order for the fund to invest in them? And that gives an idea of who should the fund pursue as an investment target, what startups can apply to that fund to be invested in, but also what LPs are seeking that particular fund to be investing in. So a lot of stakeholders and a lot of decisions are going to be made by that investment strategy in a venture capital fund. Much in the same way, the organization at large, regardless if it's from automotive, pharma, telco, they need to have an innovation thesis. What is the direction in which we want to innovate? What are the things we want to do, and what are the things that we deliberately say we don't want to do? A country might need to have an innovation thesis, right? What are the things that we want as a country to innovate on, and what are the things that we don't want to innovate on? So the concept is very powerful and very useful, because that's going to guide decisions. That's going to guide decisions at idea creation stage, right? When somebody comes up with an idea, they will look at the strategy and say, okay, my idea is going to be backed by the company, or it's not going to be backed. So I need to create another idea, and it's going to also pay dividends later on, because first of all, it's going to guide you through decision making at every gate, but also it's going to pay dividends later on in terms of the ideas being adopted back into the business units, back into the core business. In the absence of strategy, and again, I'm talking from experience here, in the absence of strategy, there can always be a naysayer in the organization that goes on and says, "Look, I'm not going to invest in that particular idea because it's not aligned with strategy." Might be true, might not be true, but in the absence of strategy, that's an argument that can always be brought up. However, with a strategy in hand, with an innovation thesis in hand, that argument is totally invalid, because people can actually check if that particular idea or if that particular group of ideas is aligned or it's not aligned with strategy. So this is why I will always encourage the adoption of an innovation thesis within a company. I always tell clients that, look, if you guys have problem with idea adoption in various business units, it might be rooted in the fact that you don't have a strategy, and most of the times that is confirmed, unfortunately for them.
Understood. So it's important to know how exactly the core business will benefit in the end out of any innovation efforts that are being made within the company, so that adoption and support around it is more powerful.
Indeed. It's all about being deliberate. It's all about deciding where we want to go and sticking to that direction. Because with the fast world of innovation, when we're talking about technology innovation in particular, we have these technology waves that are coming over us every 3 months, every 6 months. I was just looking at the graph recently, how long it took certain ideas to reach 100 million users. And the World Wide Web in the 90s took 7 years to reach 100 million users. And Threads reached 100 million users in 3 days. This is basically like the gap, if you want. I think ChatGPT took about 2 months to reach 100 million users. And when it reached 100 million users in 2 months, that was the fastest thing that we ever had. Threads did it in 3 days.
Well, yeah, they also had the already existing pool of users from Meta to leverage, but yeah, it got pretty.
Fair enough, but still 3 days is 3 days. You know what I mean? And 3 days are not 7 years. So whenever we have this waves of new technologies or new products, it's very easy as an incumbent organization like a bank, like a pharma, all these giant organizations that are typically very slow to suffer from the fear of missing out syndrome, right? The FOMO. Oh, I've missed out on ChatGPT. What do we do next? So they tend to spread their investments thin. All of a sudden, they want to invest in generative AI. Before that, they wanted to invest in blockchain or crypto or God knows what, metaverse, right? That was a big buzz at one point. If you have a strategy, the strategy is going to prevent you from spreading yourself thin. I always say that it's better to take 1,000 steps in one direction than to take one step in 1,000 directions. Yeah, it might be that the direction is wrong. That's fine. As long as you're taking the steps quite fast and you're learning from your mistakes, I would always support an organization that wants to go really deep in one strategic direction rather than spreading themselves thin. A tiny bit in generative AI, a tiny bit in blockchain, a tiny bit in metaverse, a tiny bit in whatever it is, because that's not going to be coherent with the strategy, and you're going to look very amateur, if you want, to your client base, but also to your investors.
Understood. Understood. Okay. So, if we are to look a bit back, when do you believe that the need for corporate innovation started to pop out, like pop up? Because if you're looking at, I don't know, the beginning of this millennium, there was certainly no corporate innovation at that time. Like, looking back, when do you believe it started to come to be?
I think corporate innovation existed for a really, really long time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it was initially, R&D, research and development. It was probably masked under R&D. I don't think there was a definite moment in time we could say pre that event or post that event, corporate innovation emerged. I know this is a very politically correct answer that I just gave you, but that's honestly my opinion. I think that corporate innovation definitely evolved and transitioned over the years from an R&D function to what it is now, right? With digital products, with corporate venture capital, with partnerships, with all these things, university collaborations, right? We're talking about now probably open innovation, but it morphed a lot over the years. However, if you want an important moment in time, I would think that an important moment in time for corporate innovation was probably 10 to 15 years ago when the lean startup movement started. I
Mm-hmm.
think the lean startup movement popularized the idea of startups and made it very, very cool. And that's when corporations started to look closer to startups. I can tell you from my experience, when I created my first startup, I was 19. I was in university. At that moment in time, this was beginning of the 2000s, if not late 1990, something like that. So when I created my first startup, the word startup or the word entrepreneur was pretty much a synonym to being unemployed. This was it. Like, you have a startup, oh, so you couldn't find a job with a bank, or you couldn't find a job with an automotive company, or you couldn't find a job with whatever telco company, or work for the government, whatever it was, right? So I remember the conversations around the dinner table with my family were always awkward, right? What does your son do? Oh, he has a startup. Oh, so he couldn't find a job with a prestigious bank. No, I really want to build things, and this is like early 2000s, right? And fast forward to 2015, 2016, Tinder, that famous dating app, released a statistic, and their statistic looked at the jobs that women and men need to have in order to get the swipe right, meaning a like from
Mm-hmm.
the other side. And I can't remember what were the jobs on the women's side. I was not necessarily interested. I was looking at the men's side, and I can tell you that first one was firefighter, second one was pilot, and third one was entrepreneur.
Mm.
So we went in the span of 10, 15 years, probably from the moment I created my company to when Tinder released their statistic, to from like the idea of you are unemployed to an idea, oh, you're a very, very interesting individual. So again, obviously in between these years, the lean startup movement came along. We learned how to do cheaper startups, better startups, smarter startups. Obviously technology helped a lot. I remember back in the day when we had to configure our own servers, and it took a lot of time, and it was very expensive. And now you can just go on Amazon Web Servers. I'm not trying to promote their services in any way in your podcast, but in essence, you can go to AWS and just create your own server, and it's going to cost you less than $10 a month, and you're up and running, by the end of the evening. So the cost of starting up has gone down exponentially in 10, 20 years. So I think that was also contributing to the importance of corporate innovation. Why? Because now the barriers to entry were lowered,
Exactly.
or in some cases they disappeared altogether. If you were a bank back in the 2000s, you would only see competition from basically other banks. But now competition can come from a technology company, can come from a startup. It's very easy to get disrupted or have a really big chunk of your market leave to a competitor that you haven't had on your radar a year ago or 2 years ago. And the examples are countless. So again, I don't think there is a moment in time when corporate innovation became important, but I would say that probably around the 2010, that's when people started to look closer inside corporations on how do we create value beyond our core business.
And it's, I believe, especially when it comes to the specific term of corporate innovation. Yeah.
I think as a term, probably around that time. Probably like with my book, The Corporate Startup, that came out in 2017. I think the term was already established around the time when we had the book come out. And if we haven't had an established term by then, I guess that the book itself helped establish that particular term.
What drove you to write the book, or what type of passion you've put into it? Like, where did the spark, the desire to write it come from?
Definitely not from my studies. I'm an engineer, so I've never been attracted by the idea of writing books or whatever. I think that the book itself came to be as a form of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I was very frustrated. I at one point I had a corporate job. Finally, my family was happy. I was no longer an entrepreneur. I had a corporate job. So for about 3 years, I was working in the product innovation department of Europe's largest telco provider, and they headhunted me from the startup scene. I said I'm going to give it a shot. So when I was there, I was very frustrated with the way things were happening inside the company, how they were building products, how products were being developed, how products were being improved. Basically, everything that I was seeing, where I was used to from the startup world, did not apply in the corporate environment for various reasons. I don't want to say, hey, this was just this one reason, and if that wouldn't have been there, definitely things would be better. I think there were obviously a multitude of reasons why that particular organization and most organizations are struggling with innovation. So I started documenting the things that I was doing inside that corporation to change it. How I was changing the processes. I'm not saying just myself, but basically the team that I was with, the way we were changing the processes, the way we were changing budgeting, the way we were changing a lot of things that we were doing. And blog posts got me to go to conferences and meet other great people, other great speakers that were struggling in essence with the same issues as I was struggling with. At the conference, I've met my co-authors. So we said, look, I've been blogging about this on my blog. You are blogging about this on your blog. You're speaking at conferences about the same topic. How about we codify everything into a book that somebody like us can pick up and start doing? It's more like writing for us. What would I have wanted in my position, not having access to a lot of information? Because there weren't any corporate innovation books back then. There were some, but nothing very specific codifying what you need to do. So let's write it. We never set out to write a bestseller. We never set out to write a book that's going to be translated in 9 languages. We never set out to do all these kind of things. We said, let's try to solve our own problem. And I think this is how the corporate startup came to be. With the second book, with Innovation Accounting, I can tell you I was a bit more deliberate. That was the book I always wanted to write around measuring innovation. How do we put numbers on top of our investments? How do we become pragmatic when it comes to investing in innovation? But in order to write about that, you have to have the basics, and the corporate startup was the basics. But again, I think it was more by chance than by design. And I think that with a lot of business books, things happen more by chance than by design. And people that are telling you otherwise, they may try to fool you into thinking, oh, that I had this vision of an amazing book and yada yada yada.
So it was passion in itself that made the book the
I,
initiative.
I, I would
Yeah.
say I would say therapy, man. I would say therapy. I was trying to solve my own problem, and I was taking my frustration on the keyboard.
Understood. Understood. So, if you are to look at some examples of companies, big companies that were able to reinvent themselves along the years, like in big ways, what companies come to mind, and why?
Very good
And why?
question.
And why? Yeah.
Very good. Very good question. Again, I'm gonna mention some names, but these are not the only companies. These are the companies that I like, and these are the companies that I have been following. There might be so many other great companies out there that I haven't even heard about.
Of course.
I would say IBM.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, IBM is a very interesting company because they changed their core business uh, 3 or 4 times over 60 years, and they're always at the forefront, no matter how much we like them or how much we hate them or how much we think that they are dead. They are not. And even today, they are working on some amazing new technologies. Again, it started with technology, and then it transitioned into service providers. At one point, they've done PCs and mainframes, and they went to consulting. At one point, their core business was consulting, and now they are going back to technologies. It's a pretty interesting company, and again, it has a lot of history. They are one of the companies that contributed to the invention of the modern world. If we like it or we hate it, that's a fact. Another good example for me would be Sony. Uh, Again, Sony is amazing. If you look at their portfolio and the way they are managing that portfolio, it's pretty brilliant. And let's ignore for a second the electronics part of Sony, but look at the sorry, not the Xbox, the PlayStation. Look at Sony Music, Sony Pictures. They actually have a bank in Japan, Sony Bank. Again, pretty interesting company. And if you now try to look just at the technology side, you're going to find out that about 75% of digital cameras in the world use Sony chips. So no matter what brand it says on the camera, it's probably a Sony inside. Even if it's a Nikon or a Canon or an Olympus or whatever it is, there is most likely a Sony chip inside. Who knows? Maybe inside the iPhone there's a Sony chip too. I don't know exactly because I haven't opened an iPhone. But again, pretty interesting company. Um, I would say DuPont, again, a very interesting company to look at. These will be my favorite. There's probably many more out there that are doing some amazing things.
And what, like, why I was asking is, in order to try to identify what are some common traits or common characteristics of these companies that are able to continuously innovate and reinvent themselves depending on the market needs. Is it something that they have in common? And if so, what do you believe it might be?
I think it's very difficult to look for a correlation pattern between, look, you are able to change and then these were your characteristics. I think there's a mix of things that organizations need to have. Uh, there is this book, I think Tolstoy wrote it, Anna Karenina.
Yeah.
And on the first page, if you open the book, there is this quote. The book starts with this quote that says that all happy families are alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. I think this is pretty much the same concept applied to corporate innovation. I mean, all the organizations that succeeded in transforming themselves, in becoming innovative, in keeping up with trends, they all had everything figured out, from strategy to culture to people to finance to processes to everything, branding. Everything was on point. The organizations that failed, they all failed in a different way. Some of them failed in recognizing some trends. Some of them failed in recognizing internal entrepreneurs, and I'm looking at Kodak here, for example, right? Some of them failed to recognize, as I said, trends. If you look at Blockbuster versus Netflix, some of them failed to build a great culture. Some of them had problems with finances, and so on and so forth. I don't think it's a matter of identifying that one thing that's going to make you great, as much as it is about developing all your elements, developing everything that makes you a company into becoming a learning organization, an organization that can learn and adapt based on inputs from the market. That would be my answer, and that would be in essence what we're typically explaining to clients as well. Don't try to focus on just having a good strategy or just having a good culture. You have to have everything.
Yeah, so it is in a way a growth mindset, but it's not that simple.
It's not just that, and it's a growth mindset applied at organization level,
yeah.
not just, hey, we need to have our board have a growth mindset or our frontline employees having a growth mindset. I think it's more that the organization becomes a learning organization.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, and right now in 2024, what do you see as the main challenges and blockers in corporate innovation? Companies that are trying to innovate, what are the main hurdles that they run into?
Again, as I said earlier with the Anna Karenina quote, every organization is suffering from different things. What are some commonalities that we have found? Um, Actually, we found commonalities amongst industries.
Okay.
So industries, companies that are in a certain industry typically suffer from. I don't know from the top of my head. We ran some research on 350 companies worldwide on what's holding them back. I can't tell you from the top of my head, but I know that some industries are struggling more with strategy. Some
Mm-hmm.
industries where R&D is an important component of their work, like in chemicals, in pharma, in automotive. They are suffering from process. Their processes are very tedious. It takes a long time to develop things. There are many reasons why organizations struggle. Lack of pragmatism, lack of measurements. um, Again, if you're looking for patterns, we are typically looking at patterns within industries, and this is what we have seen. It was impossible for us to spot patterns at country level or even size as much as we spot patterns within industries. So if I would take a bank in Southeast Asia and compare it with a bank in Northern Europe, they will probably suffer from the same things because of the banking industry and because of the pedigree that bankers have. Much in the same way, a pharma company in Germany will probably most likely suffer from the same things as a pharma company in North America or in Australia. Uh, why? Because it's the industry. So yeah, it's very difficult for me to tell you, hey, strategy is very important, or they're struggling with numbers. It really depends from industry to industry, I'll say, and from company to company, obviously.
Understood. Understood. And um, like there are many forms in which corporate innovation can take place, right? Like there's internal innovation, external innovation, open innovation. Like if you can bring some clarity over these concepts, how they intertwine and how each of them works in another way to benefit the bigger company.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I think if you want to take a very simplistic view on the matter, there's only two types of innovation: internal innovation and open innovation. You're either doing it inside or you're doing it outside. Obviously, within these two families, there are different engines or vehicles, as sometimes we call them. For open innovation, you might have a corporate venture capital fund, or you might have a startup accelerator program, or you might have an incubator, or you might have partnerships with universities and so many other open innovation engines. Inside, you would be able to do internal innovation through your own accelerator program, through an entrepreneurship program, through capability development. There's so many things you can do inside your organization. I think that regardless of which one you like or which one you're most attracted by, as an organization, if you are a leader in an organization, you should never pick and choose. You should have a mix of, first of all, both. You should have both open innovation and internal innovation, because one, it's offering you some advantages, the other one is offering you the advantages that the first one is not offering you. And lastly, even within those two types, try to experiment with as many vehicles as you can. Try to have a mix, in essence. Don't put all your eggs into one basket. Try not to do that. I've seen a lot of organizations over the years that just decided to have an accelerator program for internal innovation, and after that was set up, they basically checked the box saying, yeah, we're doing innovation, done, we can move on to doing other things. They forgot about how to manage it, how to measure it, how to improve it, how to do other things in conjunction with that accelerator program. Again, it's all a matter of creating the right mix for your strategy and for your strategic goals and intent. If you have a certain strategy or certain strategic intent or strategic goals, try to think about what are the tools that I need to use in order to achieve that. And by tools, I mean these innovation engines, be it internal or external.
So in your experience, what separates, and I know I've also asked this in another way before, but from your experience, what separates successful innovation initiatives from less successful ones?
Yeah, I think it's this is a different question than the one you asked earlier. What I have seen over the years, and probably a very important aspect of that, was how much top leadership support innovation had within that organization. I think if we are to place our finger on one important aspect of corporate innovation successful, or having corporate innovation succeed, would be how much support or how little support there is for that activity starting at the top level of the organization. If you are in an organization that in which the top level it's not really supportive of innovation and innovation investment, and you have to do everything in stealth mode under the radar, that won't have a long life. That particular approach will be gutted in the next 12 to 24 months. It might be gutted because some people found out that you exist, and they would definitely try to fire you, or it might be gutted because you yourself are now very frustrated with how things are and you're leaving the organization, so innovation dies together with you. However, in an organization where there's a lot of top leadership support, then definitely investments are there as well. Time commitment, everything goes smoother, if you want. I would say that by top leadership support, we don't necessarily need to have a chief entrepreneur officer. Some organizations go down the path. I think that's actually too much, but at least have an executive responsible for innovation, be it the CFO, be it the chief product officer, be it even the CEO himself or herself, being responsible for innovation. We need to have somebody that's sitting at the board that has innovation part of their performance scorecard on the one hand, but on the other hand, part of their day-to-day activity, something that they're really, following and really interested in developing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, for for the coming 5 to 10 years, like technology moves at a speed right now that has never before, and it's not gonna slow down anytime soon. In these times, what are some uh, like some not strategies, but what are some actions that you see corporates taking in order to mitigate the risks of becoming irrelevant?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you need to start doing innovation. I think a lot of organizations are stuck into talking about it. Um, and if you are doing it, then do it full hearted. Don't do it half baked.
Yeah.
Don't do, I heard innovation is good. We're just going to start 5 ideas every year. Yeah, regardless of the fact that we are 300,000 people worldwide, we're only going to invest in 5 innovation ideas every year. That's not going to move the needle for you. And this was, by the way, a real example. I'm not going to name the company. Um, um, that's not going to move the needle for you. You won't see any impact from innovation. You either do it or you don't. Like Yoda said in Star Wars, you do or you don't. You don't try, something like that.
Do or do not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Do or do not. There is no try. So pretty much the same thing. You either do corporate innovation and you do it properly, and then you invest in a lot of ideas. You build all the things that you need to build, or don't do it at all, and it's fine. Just milk the cash cow for as long as you can. Try to do
Exactly.
some digital transformation. Add some sprinkle some digital things on top of your existing core business, and you're fine. But it's not like, can I just do a couple of ideas? No, just don't bother with a couple. That would be one. Second, I think if you are an organization and you're hearing this podcast episode now, and you're an organization that is doing corporate innovation, I think what needs to happen in the coming 5 to 10 years is adding pragmatism. Adding pragmatism. I'm going to say that again, adding pragmatism to innovation. Why do I say adding pragmatism? Because now, at least in some organizations, innovation has a very bad rap. Um, and it has this bad reputation because a lot of people thought that innovation is cool, innovation is nice, innovation is about creativity, about dressing up in funky clothes and wearing funky shoes and having a funky office. I'm not saying that innovation is not that, but what innovation is a discipline. You need to be disciplined if you want to see results. Innovation is probably the closest thing you will get to professional sports in business, where you need to show up for practice every single day if you want to see results during a game or at the end of the season. So you have to have that mindset of discipline. I think the creativity and fun part, they are probably in between 1 and 10% of the work in innovation. The rest is just grinding every day, putting in the hours, working with discipline. If you set yourself some targets, follow those, and just be very pragmatic about how you approach your day-to-day activities. And I think we're kind of missing that, and we're missing that even at board level, when we're giving away budget for innovation and we're not asking for certain returns or for certain impact. And we're just saying, yeah, the budget for innovation. Or from an innovator side, we go and we ask for budget without giving very clear targets of what we're going to achieve with that. Hiding ourselves behind, look, innovation is about creativity. I can't promise you results. Yeah, but you can promise some things. I'm not here arguing that you need to promise a certain ROI figure like the core business does whenever they're asking for a budget, but you can still provide some other things. And if you don't know what to provide, innovation accounting, my second book, can help you with a lot of the KPIs you can set yourself up for. I think that's what we're gonna need in the coming 5 to 10 years.
But how do you think when the core business it's the one that's feeding basically the whole of the organization, how can you still be disciplined about it, about pursuing new ideas that can make you stronger and increase your competitive advantage on the long term when maybe the core business is taking hits? Or how do you see this? How are you able to include such a discipline and adopt such a discipline in your
Well,
innovation?
it
Yeah.
all starts from leadership. It all starts from the top. The bottleneck is always at the top of the bottle. That's the saying. So it all starts top down. If the board goes into a panic mode because certain fluctuations in the market, and the first thing they do is they cut on the innovation spending, I don't see that particular organization surviving for a very long time. And to be honest with you, just over the past few years, at the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of organizations that cut down on their innovation spending just in 2020 because they didn't know how the world is going to look like in the future. Those organizations are still having it very hard to recover today. Um, they are finding it very hard to build new business models. They are finding it very hard to capitalize on trends. On the other hand, there were organizations and there were boards that during those difficult and uncertain times, I would say uncertain more than difficult times, um, were actually saying the opposite. Look, the only budget we're not going to cut is the one for innovation and digital products. We're going to cut a lot of spending because we don't know how the world is going to look like. But one thing we're going to keep intact is the budget for innovation, and those organizations actually came out stronger from that particular downturn than others did. So again, I think it's a matter of leadership more than anything.
Okay, and why do you believe they were bold enough to go with
I
keeping
think
innovation?
I think that some companies actually saw results and benefits from having innovation pre-pandemic,
Okay.
and the boards were sold on the idea,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, yeah,
That.
we've seen results, definitely we should double down on this. And on the other hand, the boards that were, triggered by the pandemic to stop innovation were the ones that haven't seen results from innovation before that. I think that was, if you want, the common pattern. Obviously now it also, it the whole decision could have been influenced by personal preference,
Mm-hmm.
by personal experience that certain board members had, even by certain, economic uh, factors, like would the government sponsor some of the digital investments, because in some countries the government actually stepped in and it financed, or it financed some digital initiatives that private companies took. So uh, again, there are multiple factors, but at the end of the day, I think it was just a matter of leadership, and it's still a matter of leadership today. Organizations that have conservative boards that are only interested in, quarter over quarter results and are missing the big picture, um, will probably be more tempted in doubling down on the core business. So be it, good for them. But there are also more visionary boards that are asking themselves the question, what's going to happen 2 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
or 3 years from now, or 5 years from now? Not only what's going to happen at the end of this quarter.
I'm gonna ask again this question, but now looking forward, who do you think will be the innovative companies of the future, at least for the next 5 years? What companies and why?
It's very interesting. It's a very interesting climb we're in. Uh, Definitely, companies in consumer goods are going to be the ones that will, or companies in consumer goods or consumer services, so B2C,
Mm-hmm.
are going to be, B2C are going to be the ones that are going to, be probably the most innovative, because the need comes from a B2C environment, or the need is it's definitely stronger in a B2C environment. However, B2B companies are going to be very interesting. I would say that companies in the defense space are going to be very interesting to look at in the future, or companies that are adjacent to the defense industry might be obviously very prompt to becoming innovative. Obviously, pharma is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, agro and agrotech, it's going to be there. uh, it's very difficult to say it's going to be one sector over the other. I think it's the tide that lifts all boats.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, some are going to lift higher, some are going to lift lower, but the tide is still going to lift all the boats.
Understood. So, and now if we're looking at a day in the future, a day in the furthest future that you'd like to imagine, and looking at the big corporate companies of that day innovating, how does it look like? How is it different from how it is now?
Yeah, I think that if I imagine an utopia world,
Yeah,
right,
let's.
a day in the future, an utopic vision in the future, I think that we will see the innovation function as being an embedded function within every organization, from mid-size all the way to large incumbents. We will no longer have to justify why we need innovation. Like today, we don't have to justify why we need the marketing department,
Mm-hmm.
because nobody's asking why do we need a marketing department. But if you were to go back in the 90s or in the 80s even, people are like, what's marketing? Why do we need marketing? What is marketing for, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like thinking that we're going to see the same thing with innovation in the following years, or hopefully we're going to see the same thing. So a day in the future, somebody that's in innovation is going to be treated as any other uh, you know vital department in an organization. Like we need marketing and sales and finance and procurement. We need innovation and product development and engineering and whatever else. I think that's on the one hand. And on the other hand, I think that once that happens, we are going to see very, very mature and pragmatic conversations taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Look, last year innovation has contributed X% to our top line growth. This was their throughput in terms of pipeline. This is how many successful products they launched. This is how much they paid for it. This is how much a failure costs. These are some indicators that we're using in order to set budget for ourselves in the future. So in essence, the conversations that you're now seeing taking place around the core business expand that to innovation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, what would be your piece of advice for companies today in order to be those corporate companies of a day in the future? What would be a piece of advice?
I would say that obviously you have to start doing innovation. We already discussed about that. If you are doing innovation, start treating the function as a discipline. Start treating innovation as any other function in the organization. Require the people that work in the innovation department to have the same pragmatism and the same management approach that you would require from somebody in marketing or somebody in product development or somebody in finance. Require the same rigor, require the same pragmatism, require the same management style and approach. Move away from innovation is cool and innovation is more art than is it science. uh, Try to stay away from that mantra of innovation being art. Moving to innovation is a management discipline. That will be my advice. Yeah, you can still keep the sneakers and the funky office and the funky shirts, but that's not necessarily a reflection of how people work. I would hate for the innovation department to be all suits and ties, but the suit and tie is not necessarily causal to pragmatism and management. It's just correlated to some extent. But if we have to wear ties and be pragmatic about innovation, I much rather do that than wear sneakers and just be treated as a Mickey Mouse function.
So let's start taking innovation as serious as an essential part of the company's existence.
Pretty much. We're taking marketing serious. Why are we taking innovation serious? We're taking finance and procurement serious. Why are we taking innovation serious?
Yeah, I think we're at the point in which evolution makes it so that we need to take it serious.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, well, thank you for today's insightful conversation. I definitely learned more about corporate innovation and what I should give as a piece of advice to companies that are looking to stay relevant in the future. Thank you, Dan, for taking the time to discuss with us today. If you want to share anything else with our listeners, with our viewers, feel free to do so.
If there's any questions, people can find me on social media, in particularly on LinkedIn. More than happy to have conversations with practitioners trying to evolve the discipline. So reach out.
And can you restate what are the two books and where people can find them? Because I believe that.
Yeah. The first one is called The Corporate Startup, and if you go on Amazon, regardless of where you are in the world, Amazon, whatever, domain .fr.de.com, whatever, is going to have it. So the Corporate Startup will be one, and the other one is called Innovation Accounting. And again, Amazon is going to be your best friend there finding it. Both books have websites. It's the corporatestartupbook.com for the corporate startup, and innovationaccountingbook.com for innovation accounting. They both have blogs, articles, entry probably every month from myself, my co-authors, but also from third-party contributors, everybody talking about the same topic. So these are evergreen resources and ever developing resources. The book, it's just the book, but if you want the latest and the greatest, I think the blogs are going to always keep up with the latest thinking and the latest trends.
Thank you again, and looking forward to our next conversation and see how innovation is going to change by then, because I think that things are going to be changing at a very rapid pace.
Thank you very much for having me. Great conversation. Yeah, fingers crossed. Hopefully, we're going to live that day in the future.
It's closer than we think. Thank you for tuning in today for another episode of A Day in the Future. Today we've talked about corporate innovation. I'm curious about what you'd like us to talk about tomorrow, and together paint day by day how a day in the future looks like. You can follow our Instagram account. You can follow us on Spotify and YouTube in order to tune in to the latest episodes that appear. And for additional information about what we're doing and what our mission is, you can look on adayinthefuturewith.com. And yeah, looking forward to next episodes and defining together what a day in the future will look like.